This is my Alienware update. And let me start out by saying I've had zero problems with the computer. I've had no crashes. I have had a few small software problems, and I'll get into that later in the video. One modification I made is I cut some little strips from a white sticker and outlined the USB port. It helps me find it at night when it's dark. For an SD card reader, I recommend this Anchor. It's got a USB-C connector and it works really good. It's got a slot for regular cards and also a micro SD card slot, and it doesn't block the other USB port right above it. I didn't like having that thing sticking out of the front of the case, so I installed a USB 3 cable into the back, and it runs up underneath my speaker foam pad, and I have an SD card reader right here. This is a Kingston USB 3 SD card reader. The 1TB SSD that comes with the computer from Dell is a Toshiba, and it actually rates really high. Here's the Toshiba. Now that I have the computer completely set up, I find that it idles between 37 and 40 degrees Celsius. The computer's been running about a week straight. I've done a whole bunch of gaming, done some video editing and rendering, and the max CPU temperature recorded is 75 degrees Celsius. I just got finished gaming for about an hour, and I'm running GPU Z, and it maxes out at 70 degrees Celsius on the GPU. I like this program, Alienware Command Center, and I've created a couple presets. I have an audio setting for gaming, and then I revert it to default when I'm just regularly using the computer. And for the thermals, I keep it on balanced when I'm regular usage, but when I'm about to game, I turn on performance, and you can hear the fans ramp up. But my things I changed, you go into Fusion, Sound. I turn all this stuff off right here, but I turn the equalizer on. For default settings, I up the bass a little bit. That's up 1 notch. This is up 3 notches. And that's for my default setting. For my gaming setting, I've upped it even more. It really makes the explosions super powerful. Helicopter thumping and bombs going off and stuff. And then I went into the FX portion and I adjusted the lighting a little bit. If anybody's curious, the default aqua color, this is the hex numbers right here. And I added it to my favorite colors, and I lowered the brightness to 40 on the power button and the front ring. I left the Alienware light at 100%. But one thing I like to do occasionally is I'll right click down here and open Event Viewer to see if something unusual is going on. Something I noticed, I was getting thousands per day of these WHEA logger warnings. So I did a Google search of the event ID number and the error, and I found numerous threads where people get the same error, and they say if you turn off XMP in BIOS, which overclocks your RAM memory, that it fixes the problem. And to go into BIOS, you click Restart, and as the computer reboots, you press F2. And this is the BIOS, and you go to Advanced, Performance Options, and you turn off Memory Overclocking to Disabled. And then you click Save and Exit. And then it asks you again, Save and Reset. And now the computer will reboot normally into Windows. And now all those errors have gone away. The only downside is now my memory runs at 2666 instead of the original 3400 megahertz. But I have personally noticed zero difference in speed or responsiveness from the computer. And from everything I've read, this problem was a Windows 10 or a BIOS issue. It might be fixed in a future BIOS update or Windows update. And after doing that memory adjustment, I've noticed another little thing where now when I boot up the computer, the power button flashes. 2 white flashes, pause, and then 1 white flash. So I googled this, and this is also a common problem. Most people say you should just ignore it, and it probably has something to do with adjusting the BIOS. A few people contacted Dell, and eventually they replaced their motherboards, but they still had the same exact thing with the 2 flash, 1 flash power button. So I've learned to just deal with it. It's really no problem at all. The computer still runs perfectly fine. And I've fine-tuned and whittled down Event Viewer to just normal stuff that they say you can ignore. A few things I had to do was reset some things in the Microsoft Store that were giving me errors, but now everything's all cleared up and running nice and smooth. The main things you want to look for is in the critical area and also the error area. For instance, in the error area, I have this one thing from a disk, and it's because I have a SD card that's going bad, and sometimes it throws an error. But what you do is you copy this and then Google it, and it'll show you ways to fix the problem. After troubleshooting, I actually found out it was a bad SD adapter. Once I switched to this new one, the SD card works fine. Another minor issue I've had is a buzzing noise coming from my speakers, and it only happens when I'm gaming. During normal usage, there's no buzzing noise. I think it has to do with when the graphics card is running at full power and it's using electricity, and you get interference through the onboard sound card. And I only noticed the buzz when there's almost complete silence in the game. But if you put your ear up to the speaker, you can hear that buzz. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to buy an external DAC, which is basically like an upgraded sound card that's external, and you eliminate any interference. The one I'm looking at right now is a Modius. It costs $200. I'll have a review on this. I'll probably get it in the next couple weeks. This computer is super powerful. It can render a video in about 8 minutes, where my old laptop would take 1.5 hours to render the same video.